Happy Thursday, Facebook friends. Welcome back to Facebook. I'm Angie Garza, Director of Professional Learning and Educational Services at ROE 47, serving Lee, Ogle, and Whiteside counties. And if you're joining us back here this fine spring Thursday here on Facebook, you'll know that it's time for another edition of Teacher Talk. And as we kick off our Teacher Talk this morning here on Facebook, as always, I can't do these conversations by myself. I'm pleased to welcome my friend, colleague, and co-host, Ms. Stacy Dingus, to our Teacher Talk this morning. Stacy, this morning we are going to be talking all things social emotional learning. We're going to be talking about our upcoming Social Emotional Learning Summit and our first annual Student Leadership Summit. So, just like with spring, new things are in bloom. We're super excited to be sharing this with our Facebook community. So you've been heavily involved in some of those planning conversations. What are you excited about as we move into March and look forward to these opportunities here in our Lee Ogle Whiteside service area?
It's the busy season at ROE 47 for sure, Angie. And I have to say that planning these summits, we have kind of gotten into a routine of featuring something different each month. A lot of work has gone into the socially emotional learning summit that we're doing, and then the student leadership one to add on to that. And as we'll talk in a little bit, we as an ROE staff got to attend a workshop or a seminar last year, and we loved it so much. I think we're kind of in tune to say, why aren't we giving this to our kids? So excited to introduce this idea to our community. I'm excited for our students to be taking part in it. And I think that it's going to be something good, something that will continue in our area. So looking forward to it.
See, you are so right. We've been working all year, actually for the last several years, as a part of our community partnership grant and now part of our Illinois Department of Public Health trauma grant to create more conversations around this idea of a community of belonging. And so as we look forward to our 6th annual Social Emotional Learning Summit and our first annual Student Leadership Summit, we're really thinking about what does it take for all of us to come together as a community and have really powerful conversations and reflective moments to talk about belonging and to talk about challenging our own thinking. And so as we kind of put out this teaser trailer here today, we are so fortunate to be joined by two very special guests. I'm going to start off first and foremost by introducing one of them to our Facebook viewers here this morning. And Michelle, we are going to start with you. Michelle Sanders. Michelle is one of our Nexus support specialists, among other things. Michelle, you do lots of things in the office to benefit our communities, and you've really run point on our Student Leadership Summit and really kind of helping to organize the events that are coming up here on, I should mention, March 14th and 15th. So as we kind of kick off our conversations here this morning, can you tell our viewers a little bit more about the 6th annual Social Emotional Learning Summit and our Student Leadership Summit that are going to be taking place here very soon?
Thanks so much for having me back again today. So the 6th annual Social Emotional Learning Summit is going to be just awesome. We are centered around creating a community of belonging, and just that idea is something that's kind of near and dear to our hearts at the ROE. So this year we are targeting educators and counselors and anyone in the education system who wants to come for a day of all things SEL. As Stacy mentioned, that adult leadership conference that many of us attended last year, we met a very special speaker who kind of rocked our worlds a little bit with regards to some of the things that he was talking about. So we decided that doing this for our students and helping to empower our students to be better leaders was just a really good idea. And it was time for our community to embark on a journey of that nature. So this will be our first annual Student Leadership Conference, and we are targeting freshmen this year from our schools around Whiteside, Lee, and Ogle counties. Those students have been chosen by their schools to represent their schools on this leadership conference, and hopefully we see a community of leaders emerging as they work their way through high school and on. And hopefully we do this again next year with next year's freshmen as well.
You mentioned that moment that all of us here on our professional learning and educational services staff was sitting at the Dixon Theater as part of that Midwest Leadership Summit. And we all looked at each other and said, this is just really great stuff. And Dr. Alonzo Kelly, who I'm about to introduce here in a moment, had a really wonderful message. So relatable, so meaningful, getting us to think about our own thinking. And so he said, this is something our community needs more of. And so, Dr. Kelly, I don't know if you've ever been referred to as the rocker of worlds, but you genuinely did rock our world and caused quite a conversation amongst our team and even amongst the community that was present at that Midwest Leadership Summit. So we are so excited to have you here as part of our 6th annual Social Emotional Learning Summit and our 1st annual Student Leadership Summit. So as we welcome you, Dr. Alonzo Kelly, to our Teacher Talk platform this morning and introduce you to our Facebook community, wondering if you could start us off by telling us a little bit more about yourself and your work.
First, I'm humbled by your words, and I'm blushing. You just can't see it. So thank you for that. Who am I? I am Catherine Kelly's son. For the people who know me, you know I'm a mama's boy. So apparently in Game of Thrones, that's how you introduce yourself, son of. So I'm son of Catherine Kelly. I live in Green Bay. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I will be wherever the call is to serve. So I'm looking forward to the day. And for those who are not aware, there's been a year-long planning that's gone into this, so I can absolutely vouch for the experience I believe you're going to have. So I can't wait. I can't wait.
Dr. Kelly, you have heard us mention several times so far this idea of community of belonging. It's something that we work really hard to create experiences and programs through the ROE to provide a community of belonging for our students, for our families, for our community, really. At both the SEL Summit and the Student Leadership Summit, we're going to be discussing this idea of a community of belonging. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like in classrooms, schools, and communities?
Well, first, I tip my hat to you taking on this conversation. I'm allergic to complicated, and I think the problem is this conversation's gotten complicated. So I like to do what I can to simplify it a little bit. And so here's how I would recommend we take this on, which I'm looking forward to having fun with all of you. I can find a lion, Lion, in the zoo, in the circus, and in the wild. If I were to ask you which lion is the real lion, which one would you tell me? I don't know. I would say I believe the real lion is the one in the wild, the one in Africa, right? The problem is I ask my 6-year-old son that question, and he says the real lion is the one in the zoo. And as I dive into that, it's interesting that he thinks that's the one, that's the real one. What it boils down to is that's his only experience with a lion. So that is his reference and frame point for what's real. So now any other lion he sees is in comparison to the one he's experienced, which I imagine if I ever take him to Africa and he sees those lions out in the wild, he's probably going to go, Daddy, look at those rude lions with no manners. Right? But you bring a wild lion to the zoo and they're like, who do you think you are, a bougie lion? We don't eat salad, right? Everybody's judging everybody, but then you put them in the same space and everybody's asking the same question. Where do I belong here? And I think in the spirit of what Mama would say, it's the start that stops most people. I recommend we figure out how to start to think about it. How do we start to have the conversation? So that's what I'm looking forward to doing when I'm there with everyone.
I did not tell you that this was coming, but I'm sure that you are going to just roll beautifully with the punches. But, you talk about these really heady conversations, and the fact that we've overcomplicated things. And as I'm listening to you, I'm reflecting about, yeah, it's all about lived experiences and perspective taking. But when you come here, here in just a few weeks, we're so excited. You're going to be working with a wide range of ages. On one day, you're going to be dealing with educators who might be veteran or new teachers, and we might have some community service agencies join us, but adults. And then the very next day, you're going to turn around and work with a group of young people. So how does that conversation look different, or is it different at all?
Same conversation, let's have it another way. So with my economics hat on, there are 293 ways to make change for a dollar. I'm going to give up 293 different versions of the same dollar. So with teachers and educators, I may come at it in one of two ways. How do we deliver an understanding of this concept of belonging through other people? Here's the irony. I'm actually not worried about whether or not my students feel like they belong in your class. I'm worried about, do they understand what to do with what happened in class when they leave it? Class is going to be the safest place I am in a day. I will not be any safer in my day than I will be in your class. That's the irony. It's like, what happens when I get home, though, and my family, my friends, my block, my community doesn't embrace what someone just taught me? That's the thing that actually worries me the most. Like, how do we keep it outside of the classroom? With students, mama would say, let your why drive your how. If you know why you're doing something, really doesn't matter how you get it done, right? So with students, I may put a little more emphasis on understanding why it's important. They play their role in creating a space where everyone feels they belong. You know, so I might focus more on the why with one group and the how on another. And with students, like, listen, the views expressed on the show for Facebook, the views expressed on the show do not reflect anybody and everybody who looks like Sel and everybody and all of their partners. This is Alonso. Absolutely, I think money drives this too. I have made way more money understanding why it's a good thing to create something where everyone feels they belong than creating something exclusive where some people feel they're not welcomed. And maybe, just maybe, they need to hear that part too.
To your point, we just talked with a group of stakeholders this morning, and we were really focused on creating that culture. I think part of it boils down to culture and creating the space for everyone, no matter their background or their lived experiences, to find like, or to feel like somebody genuinely cares about them and they're part of something bigger than themselves. And
Yeah.
you know, you talking about, again, overcomplicating the conversation, we could boil it down to just that, making space for people to feel like they're a part of something and that they belong, and they can actualize that why for them
Yeah.
and have support with it. So I'm curious, you know, it's great to talk about that, but you are really going to press both our educators and our students to think about, how do I take, to your point, what you're saying and what you're learning and carry it forward into our community, into our lives, into our relationships? So can you talk to us a little bit about what that framework looks like to kind
Yeah.
of think about action planning or next steps or actualizing some of your message?
Sure. So with the educators, here's where I'll go. A couple things. 6 modalities of learning: read, write, listen, speak, think, and role play. We do not all learn the same, and I feel like if we can evolve how we deliver the content on creating these spaces, we'll hit more people. Some people are going to read it and they got it, and some people need to think about it, and we do not role play enough. So I'll start there. Read, write, listen, speak, think, and role play. Um, the other thing I would recommend with educators is, even if you don't call it critical thinking, I'd recommend we're more intentional with injecting critical thinking into the conversation. So, like, for example, if you're up for this challenge, go a whole day without using a word of moral judgment. See if you can do it. Go an entire day without saying anything that's like good, bad, better, worse, right, wrong. See if you can go an entire day without using a word of moral judgment. And what you will be forced to do is let things be as they are and simply explain it without the comparison. So this is where Mama would say there's no good or bad except in comparison. So for the educators in the room, if you want a fun critical thinking exercise, if I were to ask you, how has the concept of respect evolved over the last 5 generations? Could you explain the concept of respect without saying it's gotten worse? Or do you explain it in a way that every generation inherits a truth about the world? And see how easy or difficult that is for you to do. Or if you want the bonus question, how has the concept of hard work ethic evolved over the last 5 generations? And I don't let you say things like, these kids have gotten lazy. They don't want to work. Nope. I'll just give you my answer. I think every generation works as hard as the one before it. Because nobody on this Facebook can look me in the eye and tell me that when you were in the first grade 30, 40 years ago, you wouldn't have used your smartphone. I have a hard time believing you would have got on a bus and went to the library and hit the card catalog and pulled out your Encyclopedia Britannica, then went back and waited on the bus in the snow, only to realize you didn't get the answer you needed. You going back to the library? Yeah, no, that doesn't make them lazy. So that's what I would say for the educators and students. I mean, for the educators. And then for students, man, I want kids to be kids again. I look at the freshmen. I'm glad you singled them out. I look at them as like, we're all going to climb this mountain together and we're meeting at base camp. And all the educators and adults in the room will be your Sherpas. I'll let you look them up, right? We're going to go first and we'll find the trail and then we'll come back and say, yeah, we can't go that way, but we'll go this way, right? We're going to help all of them do that. And then they're going to get to the summit. They're going to take a selfie without us, like they did that all by themselves. But, keep my comments to myself on that. How come the Sherpas are never in the photos on Facebook? That's all I'm saying. I know you didn't do that by yourself, whatever. But like I view freshmen as like, we're all going to do this together. But then, you know what? By senior year, they're going to be Sherpas. That's how I see it.
Just from our conversation here this morning, I can definitely tell that you're going to press us to continue to think critically and kind of examine, some of our beliefs and our thinking, so that we can continue to learn and grow and do things differently, because our kids deserve it, right?
They do. They absolutely do. I have no idea if this is going to scare people away, but you want to know what I think is the easiest book to read? Aristotle's Metaphysics. You want to know one of the hardest books to read? Green Eggs and Ham. I'm going to have everybody like confused on that book. I'll just say this about this. This is where the book starts. I thought no means no. Think green eggs and ham. Michelle's like, what?
That's very true. There's going to be a rush right now to Amazon to buy both of those
Right?
books and read them in comparison. So, thanks for that. That is a wonderful teaser trailer and sneak preview of what we're going to encounter on
Green
March
Eggs and Ham is the
14th
most
and 15th.
complicated book I've ever read. I'll explain why when you get there. I'll see you there.
Okay, perfect. We will hold you to that. Speaking of which, Michelle, I'm going to put you back on the spot. Registration is now open for our 6th annual Social Emotional Learning Summit. That Social Emotional Learning Summit, gosh, Dr. Kelly's got me thinking so much I can't even speak anymore. But that will be held on Thursday this year, Thursday, March 14th at Sauk Valley Community College from 8:30 to 2:30, or actually 8:30 to 3. And then the following day on March 15th, we'll be with students that Friday at the McCormick Event Center. So if teachers are interested in learning more about registering for that Social Emotional Learning Summit, or parents are interested in finding out a little bit more about what their students are going to be up to on that 15th, where are some places that they can go to get more information?
We have a flyer that is floating around your school districts. We also have that up on our Facebook page, as well as the ROE 47 website. You can find that QR code, which will lead you to a little snippet video that Dr. Kelly did for us to talk about that day, and to help navigate you to that sign-up form if you're interested in coming to the SEL Summit on Thursday, March 14th at SOC.
In our short time here together this morning, I feel like my own thinking has been stretched. So I know that our teachers and our students are really going to probably feel exhausted, invigorated, and empowered at the end of our 2 days together. Coming up here in March, just as a reminder to all of our viewers, Thursday, March 14th from 8:30 to 3, we will be holding our 6th annual Social Emotional Learning Summit at Sauk Valley Community College. And then on Friday, March 15th, we will be with our freshman students, roughly 100 freshman students from Lee, Ogle, and Whiteside County at the McCormick Event Center in Rock Falls. And we are looking forward to having Dr. Alonzo Kelly joining us and facilitating those conversations and that learning over the course of 2 days. So as we wrap up things here this morning on Teacher Talk, there were a couple of things, I mentioned empowerment, but Dr. Kelly, I love it when you talked about climbing the mountain. What a great analogy, because by the time you get to the top, you're accomplished. The view is beautiful. It's worth the climb. So thank you so much for leading us on that upcoming journey. We so appreciate you and your time here this morning on Teacher Talk. And as we sign off here this morning on Teacher Talk, I want to say one more thank you to Michelle Sanders, our Nexus support specialist at ROE 47, and lead on a lot of our social emotional activities over those 2 days. Thank you so much for being here. And Dr. Alonzo Kelly, who will be our keynote speaker and facilitator for the Student Leadership Summit. Also, thank you for joining us on behalf of my friend Kelly. And as we sign off and say goodbye, we want to wish you a very happy rest of the Thursday, a restful and enjoyable Friday, spring light February, March weekend, and we will see you right back here next Thursday for another edition of Teacher Talk.